Welcome back guys. So this is going to be a beginner's guide video to Dolphin Emulator. Using this emulator we can run Nintendo Gamecube and Wii games. It's a cross-platform emulator available on different platforms like Windows, Linux, Mac OS and even Android. I have already covered it on Android. Link to the video will be given in the description of this video. In this video I will be showing you its setup on my Windows PC that has Ryzen 3700X processor and an RTX 2070 Super GPU. This is the website of Dolphin. Here the requirements have been mentioned. Operating system 64-bit edition of Windows 10 or higher. Processor a 64-bit architecture processor. Highly recommended to have 4 cores or more. Faster is better. Dolphin Emulator itself is a dual-core application, so the developers have recommended having at least 4 cores, 2 cores dedicated to emulation, 1 core for running other tasks and 1 core for operating system itself. When it comes to the graphics card, any modern mid-range GPU will work fine. This emulator is not very demanding. They have recommended a graphics card that supports DirectX 11 OpenGL version 4.4, Vulkan version 1.1. Even onboard GPUs will work in some cases. Now I'll be using the latest development build. It even supports DirectX 12. Now the emulator has a lot of settings available, but the good thing is that we only need to tweak a few of them. If you want to read about these settings, you can read it here. I'll be just quickly summarizing a few of the settings. Enable dual core setting. For most of the games, just keep it enabled. In some games, it can throw an error, unknown OP code. The emulator will usually disable this setting itself. In games that are especially sensitive to CPU GPU desyncs, stick with DSP-HLE setting for most of the game. Don't tweak CPU emulation engine. Default setting is the best one. Then we have emulated CPU clock override setting. This is useful for gaining performance on weak devices. By lowering the CPU clock speed below 100% will cause the game itself to lag. This will trigger the built-in frame skip mechanism of the game. This will in turn reduce the requirements for running the game and help in improving the performance. Increasing the CPU clock speed will make the game more demanding, but it will also help in improving the game's performance, especially if the game used to run slowly on the original hardware. The emulator supports different video backends: Vulkan, OpenGL, DirectX 11, DirectX 12. Vulkan generally runs fine on NVIDIA and AMD GPUs. OpenGL is considered as Dolphin's slowest backend but is generally very stable. So if you observe any graphical bugs, you can try falling back to OpenGL. Very slow on AMD based GPUs. DirectX 11 offers a middle ground between most other backends, only available on Windows. DirectX 12 is slightly faster than DirectX 11 on some onboard graphics chips, but may be slightly less stable in rare circumstances. I'll be using DirectX 12. Shader compilation. I'll be using the hybrid Uber shaders. They can help in reducing the shader compilation stutter. In a lot of emulators, you must have noticed when you play the game for the first time, some stuttering occurs when you go through a new area. This is due to the compilation of shader cache, and when the shader cache is already present and we go through the same area, stuttering does not occur. This is how it works. If you have a low-end GPU, just stick with the specialized default setting. Now having a high-end PC does not mean all games will run at full speed. Some of the games are still broken. This is emulation after all. They have provided a compatibility list, so just refer to it before trying out any game. From here you will also obtain the recommended settings and fixes for any particular game. So this is how the ratings read. 5 stars mean perfect, no issues at all. 4 stars means playable, runs well, only minor graphical or audio glitches. Games can be played all the way through. Problems start to occur at 3 stars or lower rating. In this video I'll be trying out WWE13, Super Mario Galaxy 2 and Spider-Man 2. Let me just show you the settings for Super Mario Galaxy 2. Go to S, alphabetically sorted. There's the game. There you go. This is the game's Dolphin Wiki. Game specific issues will be highlighted under the problem section. Here a fix has been provided. This is the issue. To display the images correctly, store XFBE copies to texture only must be disabled before the image is created. Here the input methods will also be mentioned. This game only supports Wii-mote and Nunchuck. It does not support classic controller. I'll be using my Xbox One controller to play the games. We'll be mapping Gamecube and Wii controller keys to it. Now it's fairly simple for Gamecube controller. All of the keys can be mapped to Xbox One controller. Gamecube controller supports no motion sensing. Now things get tricky for the Wii controller. Some Wii games support classic controller. It's similar to Xbox One controller. Supports no motion sensing. All of the keys can be mapped to our Xbox controller. On the other hand, we have some games that run only using Wii-mote and Nunchuck. No support for classic controller. Both Wii-mote and Nunchuck have motion sensing capability. They can detect shaking, swinging and tilting of the controllers. Wii-mote also has an IR tracker. Using it, we can look around in games. I'll be only mapping a few of these controls to my Xbox One controller. Good thing is that a lot of games are actually playable even with the limited controls. So let me just show you from where to download the build. This is the website, just click here. First we have the beta builds, 2 months old. Use the latest beta version if you prefer stability over the newest features in the development versions. I'll just use the latest development build. Just click on Windows x64 here. I've already downloaded it. It's an archive file. I'll just open it using WinRAR. So this is the folder that we need to extract. We can extract it anywhere on our PC except for a directory that requires admin permissions. For example, the program files folder in C drive. I have extracted it in the E drive of my PC. There it is. Just need to drag and drop. And there's the dolphin.exe application used to run the emulator itself. Now we can make the emulator portable. All we need to do is create a text file in the root directory of Dolphin Emulator where this dolphin.exe file is present. Name the text file as portable. This will ensure that the configuration and save files for the games will be present in the root directory of the emulator itself and not in C drive. I won't be using it for this video. No BIOS file is required to use the emulator. Games are copyrighted software, so due to legal reasons I won't be giving you links to them. It is highly recommended to dump your own games that you own. Let's start the emulator and you can see it's completely blank. We need to specify the directory where our Gamecube and Wii games are present. Different formats are supported: ISO, WADs, GCM format, etc, etc. So to specify the directory, just double click here in the blank space. This is the directory where I have placed my game ROMs. So once you have opened the directory, just click on select folder. Our game should show up. There you go. I'll be using my Gamecube controller configuration to play Spider-Man 2. We'll be using my Wiimote and Nunchuck controller configuration to play Super Mario Galaxy 2. And using my classic controller configuration to play WWE 13. So let's map the controllers. Just click on controllers here. First I'll map the Gamecube controller. Just click on configure here under Gamecube controller section. As you can see, I have already mapped all of the keys. I'll just clear all of the controls. I have connected my Bluetooth Xbox One controller to the PC. So all you need to do is first select your device. My gamepad has been detected. The emulator also supports mouse and keyboard controls. Just left click on any slot and then press the key on your gamepad that you want to map with the corresponding slot. For the A key, I'll use the A key of my gamepad. For B key, I'll use the corresponding B key of my gamepad. Same thing for the X and Y keys. For the Z key, I'll be using select key of my gamepad. For the start key, I'll be using the start key of my gamepad. For Gamecube's D-pad buttons, I'll be using my Xbox One's D-pad buttons. Moving on to the control stick, it is basically the left analog stick. For up, just move the left analog stick in the forward direction. For down, move it in the backward direction. For left, move it in the left direction, and for right, move it in the right direction. As simple as that. You can detect its motion now by moving it. C stick is the right analog stick. Need to do the same procedure again. Then we have the triggers. Just press the L slot and then press the left trigger on your gamepad. For the R slot, press the right trigger on your gamepad. For analog detection, just left click on the L analog slot here and then press the left trigger on your gamepad. Then left click on R analog slot here and press the right trigger on your gamepad. Now you can test the analog triggers, as you can see. If you are using a PlayStation controller, make sure you select STL as the API. For Xbox One controllers, X input is recommended. We can also create different profiles that we can use with different games. I'll just name it as 1. There you go. So it's a simple process for Gamecube controller. The emulator also supports real Wiimote and Nunchuck. You can try connecting them to your PC via Bluetooth, but the connection won't be very stable. Usually a Dolphin bar is recommended for it. I have already created a Dolphin bar tutorial. Link to the video will be given in the description. Here I'll be just using my Xbox One controller. Time to map the Wiimote controls. So just click on configure here. Again I'll clear all of the controls. These controls are for the Wii remote. Make sure your gamepad is selected. X input. I'll map the A key of Wii remote to the L1 key of my Xbox One controller. B key to the R1 key. 1 key to the left trigger. 2 key to the Y key of my gamepad. Minus key to the A key of my gamepad. Plus key to the B key. D-pad buttons of Wii remote will be mapped to the D-pad buttons of my Xbox One controller. Fairly simple. You don't need to follow my controller configuration. You can create your own as well. It's just that I've used this configuration to play a lot of Wii games on Dolphin Android emulator. So I'm just sharing this configuration with you. So here's the extension thing. Wii remote supports different extensions. I'll be mapping classic controller and Nunchuck. First I'll map the classic controller. Now we need to go to extension tab. Map all of the keys similar to Gamecube controller. ABXY keys of classic controller map to the ABXY keys of my Xbox One controller. ZL key map to L1 key. ZR key map to R1 key. Minus map to select key. Plus key map to the start key. D-pad buttons. Same one on my gamepad. Left stick. It's the left analog stick of my gamepad. Fairly simple. Right stick. Right analog stick. Then we have the triggers. Press on the L slot. Press the left trigger of a gamepad. R slot. Press the right trigger of a gamepad. Then left click on the L analog slot. Press the left trigger of a gamepad. Slot of R analog. Press the right trigger of a gamepad. There you go. Wii games that support classic controller can be fully played using the classic controller extension. You don't need to use Wii remote and Nunchuck for these games. Now I'm going to map the Wii remote motion controls to my gamepad. Just go to motion simulation tab here. Click on this slot corresponding to X. Now I'll just press the left analog stick, that is the L3 button. Go to the Y slot, press the right analog stick of our gamepad, R3 button. We only have a limited number of buttons on our gamepad, so I'll just leave the Z slot as blank. Now this is where creating different profiles for games will be useful. Some games will require you to shake the Wii remote in the Z axis, so you can remap the controls anytime you want. Now we need to map the Wii remote IR pointer. Using this we will be looking around, so just left click on the up slot. Now move the right analog stick of your Xbox One controller in the forward direction. Left click on the down slot, move the right analog stick of the Xbox One controller in the backward direction. Left click on the left slot, move the right analog stick in the left direction. For the right slot, move the right analog stick in the right direction. That's it. Now I'll be mapping the Nunchuck motion controls to the gamepad as well. Go to General and Options. Select Nunchuck as the extension. Then click on Extension Motion Simulation. Need to do the same thing for the X, Y and Z axis. Just left click on the X slot and press the select key of your gamepad. Then left click on the Y slot and press the start key of your gamepad. That's it. I won't be mapping anything for tilt and swing. Depends on the game. Under the extension tab, we need to map the left analog stick of the Nunchuck to the left analog stick of our gamepad. So just left click on the up slot here. Now move the left analog stick of your gamepad in the forward direction. Left click on the down slot, move the left analog stick in the downward direction. Left, right direction. That is it. Just click on the C slot. Now press the X key on your Xbox One controller. Now left click on the Z slot and press the right trigger of your Xbox One controller. There you go. Leave extension motion input as this. That's it with the controller mapping. Now we are ready to run GameCube and Wii games. So let me just show you the global settings. Go to Options, Configuration. First we have the General tab. Enable dual core setting checked, speed up. Enable cheat setting checked as well. This is required if you are planning to use cheat codes with the emulator. Interface settings, default. Audio settings, default. DSP HLE recommended. Paths, your ROM directory is shown here. GameCube. Save directory is shown here. You can also keep the saves in same directory as the ROM if you enable this setting. This is the V tab. This setting is checked. Use PL 60 mode. Usually PL games run at 50 FPS. If they support 60 FPS and this setting is checked, the game will run at 60 FPS. Advanced setting, left as this, default. I'll be tweaking these settings on the per game settings, not from the global settings. Spider-Man 2 requires enable MMU setting to be checked. Helps in improving the performance. Let me show you the graphics setting now. General tab, from here we can select the API. I'm using Direct 3D 12. Name of your GPU, aspect ratio set to stretch to window, start in full screen mode enabled. Disable VSync. Show FPS enabled. Shader compilation settings, I'll be selecting hybrid over shaders. Already explained this setting. Then we have the enhancements tab. Now I have selected the internal resolution to 6x 4K. It largely depends on your GPU. RTX 2070 Super is way too powerful for running Dolphin Emulator. If you have a mid-range GPU, you can try dropping the resolution to 3x Full HD. I have disabled anti-aliasing using a very high resolution. Anisotropic filtering set to 1x. Increasing the value can introduce some bugs in some games. I think in WWE 13 Titantron does not work properly if you increase the value of anisotropic filtering. This is mentioned on the Dolphin Wiki page. These settings here are left as this. Hack setting, very important. Default settings work very nicely with most of the games. These hacks help in improving the performance. In some games they can introduce bugs. For example, in Super Mario Galaxy 2, this setting needs to be disabled, otherwise you won't be able to use Yoshi's tongue. Skip EFB access from CPU. Then we have the store EFB copies to texture only setting enabled. As mentioned in the Dolphin Wiki page of Super Mario Galaxy 2, store XFP copies to texture only setting needs to be disabled. I'll be assigning these two settings to hotkeys, Y and H keys of my keyboard, so I can toggle them in any game on the fly. General tab, left as this. Let me just click on graphics tab. There you go. Toggle EFB copies. Just click on the slot here. Now press the Y key or any other key on your keyboard. Same thing for the XFB copies. I'll assign it to H key. These are the hotkeys for save and load slots. 10 slots are available. 8 of them have already been mapped. To access the first save slot, need to press the Shift plus F1 keys together. And to load from the first slot, just need to press the F1 key. The next save and load slot can be accessed by pressing the corresponding function key. So first I'll be running Spider-Man 2. Just right click on the game in order to access the per game setting. Wiki page can also be accessed from here. You can also open the folder containing the game ROM and also the save folder. I'll just open the per game settings. Here I have enabled the enable MMU setting. Blank means disabled. Blue box means global setting. Tick means enabled. These settings will override the global settings. Rest of the settings here are left as this. In order to apply any cheat codes, just click on Gecko codes here. Then click on download codes. 2 codes were available for this game. Now if you want to enable the cheat code, just check the box corresponding to the cheat code. I won't be using any cheat codes for this game.